Good morning. I'm Lindsay, and I thought I'd come on the forum and show all those people that say, I've never made my own dough before and I buy the dough from the supermarket. I think it's very complicated. Just to show you how easy it really is, and a few little tips and things you might need to buy. First off, if you're going to make your dough, accuracy with ingredients is one thing I would mention straight away, and it's worth investing in these little scales. These are miniature scales, not ordinary kitchen scales, and they'll go down to, I think, 0.001 of a gram, whereas kitchen scales start much further up the scale. They're not expensive. I think I paid about £25. That's the make, if you want to take a screenshot. Available on through Amazon.co.uk. And so that's the first sort of thing I would mention, that you do that. Other things I would say is don't get too into different types of yeast. I've tried proper yeast, what I call proper yeast, but these instant dried yeasts work really well. They don't keep going off, and you know, it's all conveniently packaged in little packets inside, and as I say, very easy to use and keep. That's what I recommend you buy from your local supermarket. Most brands are very similar. Morrison's, Tesco's, I think Sainsbury's do their own. Now this is a personal thing. Obviously tap water that you're adding to your flour is different throughout the country. We're in the south of England, where the water is pretty hard, and I reckon a lot of chlorine in it. I tend to find that what I do is I boil the kettle up. Probably an hour or so after I boil the kettle, the water in it is still warm to tepid. I like to use that water for my mixing. I find that gives consistent results, and as I say, I think boiling helps with the chlorine situation. As far as flour goes, for years I was using different types of flour without a lot of success. Suddenly someone gave me some Italian pizza flour, which is this one here, which is you probably see on the label. It's Caputo 00 pizza flour. Now it's not available in a lot of the supermarkets. Obviously they can only keep so many types of flour, but you can get it online, and I tend to buy I think it's 15 kilogram bags. They last me for quite a while. It doesn't go off. In fact, the one I was given was a big 16 kilogram bag, and that's been fine for a year. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the other thing is, I mean, ordinary table salt. You don't have to use a fancy salt. So you've got your water, your yeast and your flour. That's your main fundamentals. How you mix it, you can mix it by hand, and I recommend that everybody learns that. It's a little bit laborious, probably take about 25 minutes or so. I'm lucky enough to have a very old Thermomix machine. I don't know if you can see this. It's actually about 20 years old, but does a cracking job, because the blade in it goes one way as it's mixing, and then auto rotates throughout a short cycle. And in this thing, it only takes about 3 minutes what would take you 25 minutes by hand. So it takes all the hard work out of it. We'll run it up in a minute, and we'll show you how easy it is. And as I say, then we'll go right through the stages of cooking, shaping and all the rest of it a bit later in the video. Okay? Right, we've done our calculations of how much flour, yeast, water and salt we need. And I would recommend that everyone downloads this app. I'll hold it a bit closer. It gives you exact amounts of the time you want the dough to be ready, as the amount of water, the amount of yeast, the amount of salt, etc, etc. The pizza app, available for download free, won't cost you anything. Great, because you can make just the amount you like. Today I've chosen, because I'm on my own, I'm only doing a small pizza. I've got my bowl of flour weighed out, which was I think 270 grams, so that goes in the machine first. And then there's 100 different ways you can add and mix these things, but this is what I do. I then take my salt, put it in with the flour. because as you're probably aware, salt and yeast don't get on well together, so you really want to separate them up a bit. And so what I do is I whiz the flour and the salt together just for a few seconds, so it's not all salt that's going on to the yeast when you put it in. Sorry the machine's a bit noisy while we're doing this, but I wanted you to get the gist of what's what. So we've got the salt and the flour mixed up. I'm then going to add my yeast, which is instant dry yeast, and we put that in. And then finally I'll add some of the water, probably half of the water. Pop the lid back on. And then I'm going to set this for, as I say, three minutes. I find is quite good, plenty long enough. There we go, 3 minutes, and then I put it onto what we call the dough cycle, which, as I said to you, rotates one way, rotates the other, so it really mixes the dough up well. Sorry, apologise in advance about the noise from this trusty old machine, but it does a great job. Obviously there's lots of other mixers out there. The KitchenAid mixer everybody's got, that's fine. Or you can, as I say, do it by hand. I'm just going to pop this on for 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and have a look, okay? It goes quiet in between its twisting. And then I add more water in between. Okay, that's the noise that tells me it's done its 3 minutes. Let's get rid of that. Now, the other thing that I didn't mention before, stuff to buy, you really need one of these, a scraper, used for bread making and you know, pizza making. You can scrape it on the top. What I recommend you do is you put a little bit of flour, only a light dusting of flour on your worktop. But then, as I say, we'll get this out and we'll take a look. Well, this is 66% hydration. You don't need to go as high as this. You could use 63, 64, 65, whatever, but certainly 60 to 65, 66 I'd recommend. And obviously the more water you put in, the more difficult it gets to work with slightly. But again, this is not as bad as some bread flours that are very difficult to work with. What I would say to all you wannabe makers is don't be frightened of handling the dough, because it's a bit like having a dog. It knows if you're nervous of it. It lets you know. It's quite, as I say, sticky at this to get out of your machine. It hasn't come out very well in this particular case, but that's a good example of how awkward it can be sometimes. But as I say, it'll all come with a little bit, like all the jobs we do in life, all comes with a little bit of doing it a few times. And what we'll do is we'll do this thing that I liked a YouTube video on a guy called Richard Bertinet, and it's called walking the dough. And basically what you're doing is you are moving the dough around, scraping it round like this, and that will, as you can see, solidify. I'm just going to give this a couple of folds and turns. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. You can, as I say, do it whatever technique you like, but it's just, you want to trap some air in there basically. And when you're happy with it and it's smooth, round, you can see on the bottom of this, so it's actually sealed. Pinch it with your fingers. I don't know if you can see me doing that. Pinch it with your fingers, keep rolling it round until you get quite a nice smooth elasticy dough. I don't know if you can you see that now. But yeah, that's all we want. We're now going to put that into an airtight, well not airtight, but a covered tub. I've got a little thin thing like a Tupperware thing, which I'll show you. And until the given time, which this should be ready at 6 p.m. tonight, it's now 1, so it's going to prove for 5 hours or so, and then we'll take the next stage on from there. See you in a little while. Okay, this is what the dough box that I've used is like, and we're just going to see. I did split the one I made up into 2 dough balls. As you can see, I didn't do it very evenly, but they'll be fine because it's just me tonight, so it's just a solo pizza for myself. So we'll select, I think, this one here, and what you need is one of these here wallpaper strippers or whatever, because you want to get under it. But before you do get under it, we want a little bit of flour around it, and also some on this board, because when we'll flip it down, and you always flip them down upside down to start with. So you want a reasonable amount of flour. Don't be frightened of putting too much down this time. And then, as I say, under we go with that, and then flip it upside down. Let's get the lid for the box to keep the other one fresh for a little while. Okay, and then, as I say, we want a little bit of flour on top. Pat it down, not right to the edges with your hand. Try and keep it fairly round. Bit of a mistake to wear black or navy trousers when you're doing anything. And then when you spread it out a little bit, you can then get rid of some of this dough, this flour. You won't need as much as that now. And we can start gently stretching it now. There's various different ways of doing this. There's this here that I'm doing, but what you'll find is that if the dough is the right temperature and it's not cold out the fridge or anything like that, then it will stretch reasonably easy. I mean, it takes a little bit of practice, like all these things, but as you can see, just within a couple of minutes we're getting something that is not too bad. So you want it quite thin, because if it's thick at the bottom other than the sides, it's going to be doughy, and it may not have a chance to cook properly. So at first you'll encounter that, I'm sure. The fact that it's too thick at the bottom, and it won't cook. So once we're sort of more or less happy with it, doesn't have to be exact with the shape, just make sure it's going to turn easy and come off the marble here onto our thing. We then start on some toppings, and tonight I've got some fairly simplistic toppings, can't say the word. I've got some tomato that I've mixed up and just reduced down a little bit. I've got some lovely Spanish chorizo. I'll just take this off here now, that we brought back from a visit to Spain a month or so ago, and it's quite expensive one. This is not lovely stuff. And then we've got a mixed, just using some mixed grated cheese quick for the top, and we'll see how we go on. So let's get going. Just get me my spoon. Right, so let's get some tomato on. You don't want to go too near the edge, a good inch from the edge really. And again, not too much. Don't crowd
people make the mistake, and I did myself, of crowding the actual pizza with toppings, and then it, as I said to you, it doesn't cook properly, and you get really disappointing results. This tomato is just a tin of tomatoes reduced down with a few added herbs and bits and pieces. And so we're going to plop some chorizo on there. Be generous, because this is the whole flavour of the thing. That's cut nice and thin as well, so it won't, as I say, take ages to cook, although it doesn't really need any cooking, but it will. And then lastly, some cheese. Try and keep that away from the edges, because anything near the edge will come off when you launch it into the oven and stick to your stone. Put a reasonable amount of cheese on, because it does obviously go to almost nothing sometimes. Right, we're happy with that. Quick move round of stuff here. Excuse all the clattering, and we'll make some room to get our peeling. Okay, I've got two peels, a large and a small. I'm going to use the large one tonight. So this is the peel, quite a large one, as you can see, and just a little bit of, tiny little bit of flour on there. Don't put too much on. And then just lift the edge of your pizza up, one swift movement, and you should be able to jiggle it around like that a little bit. And you know it's going to come off the peel when you go into the oven then. Okay, let's get it ready to go in the oven. Right, okay, here we go. So we're jiggling around, and we want to get it in the centre. Again, one swift movement, and try and get it into the centre of your stone. And then what I usually do is, immediately as it's launched, I turn the gas down on my burner, because otherwise you'll find that it does too quickly. You can see it's turning around nicely, and already the sides, within 15 seconds you can start to see them rise up. So I probably need to turn it down even more, just as low as it'll go. Just hit some steam there. I'll come out a little bit. There we go. The steam makes it go a little bit funny. Yeah, it's already looking good. And don't forget, if the thing gets too hot, you can always put the burner out and back on again. That's a little trick you'll learn with a lot of pizza ovens.